Welcome to Exposing the Truth in the Digital Evidence. Imagine you're facing a critical investigation. Maybe a data breach, could be IP theft, or even a complex cybercrime. What's the absolute first thing you need to make sure the truth actually comes out? It's having the right tools, and just as importantly, knowing exactly how to use them. Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that. We're focusing on Chapter 6 of the Authoritative Guide to Computer Forensics and Investigations, 6th edition by Nelson and Stewart. We're really zeroing in on current digital forensics tools. Now, this deep dive is specifically crafted for you. Maybe you're a student in the Dr. Sam Pack College of Business, particularly in MIS, IT, or CIS programs, maybe with a focus on computer forensics. Or maybe you're just any college student or working professional who's curious about how digital truth gets uncovered. You'll find value here too. Our mission today, it's pretty clear, to equip you with that foundational understanding of the tools, the ones that are truly indispensable in this field. We want to help you really grasp those key concepts and ideas, the ones that make all the difference. And hey, as we go, we really love hearing from you, so please like, subscribe, follow, share, and definitely comment with your thoughts. So let's unpack this right from the start. You're faced with this huge array of digital forensics tools out there. I mean, how do you even begin to choose? What are the core things to consider before you commit?
Yeah, that's a really crucial starting point. And what's interesting is that the evaluation process, it isn't just about ticking off features on a list. You're really looking for software that's inherently versatile, flexible, and robust. Think of it like building a toolkit that can actually handle what's coming next, because this digital landscape, it's always changing.
It's like future-proofing it in a way.
Exactly. And always keep those open source options in mind. Sometimes they offer just incredible value, maybe for minimal investment. The bottom line is you want the best value, getting as many reliable features as you can without, breaking the bank or even more importantly, compromising how effective you are. So when you're actually shopping for forensic software, there are some key characteristics you absolutely have to look at. First, does it support the operating systems you're likely to encounter? Windows? Sure. But also various Linux versions, Mac OS?
All of them.
Pretty much, yeah. How versatile is it across different types of investigations? What file systems can it actually handle? NTFS, FAT, XT4, APFS, HFS+, well, the list goes on. Can you script it? For automation. That saves huge amounts of time on repetitive tasks. Does it have built-in automated features that actually help, that streamline your workflow? And maybe one of the most critical things, what's the vendor's reputation?
Yeah, that's big.
It is. You need a vendor you can trust for updates, for solid support, and frankly, one that'll stand behind their product if it comes up in court.
That focus on reputation and continuous evaluation, it makes me wonder, how crucial is it to really read up on comparisons between tools, not just the feature lists from the vendor? Are there common traps people fall into if they don't do that deeper dive?
Oh, it's absolutely vital. Just looking at a feature list, that's like, I don't know, judging a car just by its paint job.
Right. Doesn't tell you much about what's under the hood.
Exactly. The real insight comes from understanding how a tool performs head-to-head against others, how it handles edge cases, what the community or professional reviews are actually saying. The biggest pitfall: buying a tool that looks fantastic on paper, but then fails to deliver reliable, consistent, and crucially legally defensible results in the real world. A tool might claim to support certain file systems, but if its parsing is buggy, you could miss critical evidence. Simple as that. And this brings us nicely to the sort of fundamental categories of forensic tools. Hardware versus software. The source material, Nelson and Stewart, categorizes them pretty neatly. On the hardware side, you've got everything from simple single-purpose components.
Like write blockers.
Exactly, like those essential write blockers we'll definitely talk more about, all the way up to complete purpose-built computer systems. Servers designed specifically for, high-volume forensic tasks. Then you have the software tools. Generally, they fall into two main types. Command line tools, which operate in text-based environments, often incredibly powerful, very precise. And then there are the GI tools, graphical user interface. Those offer the more visual, often more user-friendly experience.
Okay, so we talked about how to choose them. Makes sense. But once you have these tools, what exactly are they doing? What are the core functions they're performing in an actual investigation to, uncover that digital truth we're talking about?
Excellent question. And, to ensure credibility and consistency in any investigation, it really helps to follow established guidelines. NIST's Computer Forensics Tool Testing Program, the CSTT, that provides invaluable guidance. So do various ISO standards. For instance, ISO standard 27037, it specifically recommends that digital evidence first responders, DEFRs, consistently use validated tools.
Right. Documented, tested tools.
Precisely. The whole process, in terms of what the tools do, it really breaks down into 5 major categories or functions: acquisition, validation and verification, extraction, reconstruction, and reporting.
Okay.
Let's start with acquisition. Fundamentally, this is about making a perfect copy, a forensically sound bit-for-bit copy of the original drive or whatever digital media you have. And the real insight here, the thing to really grasp, is if you mess up this first step, even slightly, your entire investigation and any evidence you get from it, it becomes legally questionable. There's just no undo button.
Wow. Okay. High stakes from the get-go.
Absolutely. You can do a physical data copy that duplicates the entire drive, sector by sector, including unallocated space, or a logical data copy, focusing more on specific partitions or allocated files. The data acquisition format is also critical. You might get raw data, which is great because you can view it with any hex editor. Or you might get vendor-specific proprietary data, which often locks you into using that vendor's software to view it. Tools offer both command line and GUI options for acquisition. They can even handle remote acquisition, live system acquisition, capturing RAM, for instance, and memory acquisitions. A really common and useful feature in many vendor tools is the ability to create smaller segmented files from a large image. Makes managing huge acquisitions much easier.
Right, instead of one massive multi-terabyte file.
Exactly. Much more practical. Okay, so once you've got that hopefully perfect copy, the next absolutely crucial step is ensuring its integrity and accuracy. That brings us to validation and verification. Now, validation means confirming the tool itself is functioning as it's supposed to, producing reliable results. Verification, on the other hand, that's about proving 2 sets of data are identical. How do we do that? Often by calculating hash value.
Like digital fingerprints, right.
It's exactly like digital fingerprints. Think MD5, SHA1, SHA256, unique identifiers. Or using other robust mathematical methods. Key subfunctions here include hashing the original drive and the copy to compare. Filtering known good files.
Like operating system files you don't care about.
Precisely. Yeah. Filtering those out so you can focus, and meticulously analyzing file headers. And here's something powerful. The National Software Reference Library, the NSRL, run by NIST, they've compiled known hash values for a huge array of OSs, common applications, image files.
So you can quickly identify standard stuff.
Right. And many forensic programs actually include databases of common header values. This helps you spot when a file extension, say JPG, doesn't match the actual file type based on its header. Could be renamed malware, hidden data.
Sneaky. Okay.
Then we move to extraction. This is essentially the recovery and sort of initial analysis phase. It's often seen as the most challenging task to really master. It requires deep technical knowledge, a really keen eye for detail. But it's the crucial first step in turning that raw data into something meaningful. Intelligence.
This is where the detective work really starts.
You could say that, yeah. Its subfunctions involve things like advanced data viewing, often down to the hex level. Comprehensive keyword searching across the entire drive image, even in unallocated space, where deleted data might linger, decompressing or uncompressing files, carving out fragments of deleted files or data from that unallocated space.
Carving? What's that exactly?
It's looking for file headers and footers or known data structures directly in the raw data stream to piece together files that the file system no longer points to, like finding puzzle pieces.
Ah, okay. Cool.
Then there's decrypting encrypted files, which is a whole challenge in itself, and bookmarking or tagging important findings as you go. Encrypted files, naturally, are a big hurdle, but password recovery tools are part of the extraction toolkit. They offer features like generating potential password lists for dictionary attacks.
Trying common words and variations.
Exactly. And if that fails, they can run brute force attacks, just systematically trying every possible combination. Takes time, but sometimes it's the only way.
That makes a lot of sense. So extraction is where we start putting the puzzle together. You mentioned hex editors for raw data viewing earlier. Why is that specific tool so vital there?
Right. A hex editor is just invaluable because it lets you see everything, byte by byte, including that hidden or deleted stuff, file slack, unallocated space, things that are often invisible through the normal operating system or even some higher-level GUI forensic tools.
So it's the ground truth.
It's the closest you can get to the raw, uninterpreted truth of the data. essential for meticulous extraction and, importantly, for verification later on. Okay, after extraction, we have reconstruction. This is defined as recreating a suspect drive or specific events to show exactly what happened during the crime, the incident, whatever it was. The real power, the insight of reconstruction, is how it translates that raw, often confusing data into a compelling, usually undeniable narrative for a jury, maybe for internal stakeholders.
Making the story clear.
Exactly. It's where the bits and bytes become a clear story. Who did what, when, and how. It's indispensable for proving things like intent or negligence. Techniques here involve various types of copies to recreate environments. Disk to disk, partition to partition, image to disk, image to partition, disk to image. It also involves rebuilding files from those carved data runs we mentioned, meticulously piecing together that digital puzzle. And finally, number 5, reporting. To actually complete any forensics disk analysis and examination, creating a detailed, clear, and defensible report is absolutely necessary.
Can't just find the smoking gun, you have to explain it.
You have to document everything. This isn't just summarizing findings, it's documenting your entire process, every step, for transparency, for credibility. Forensic tools often come with built-in logging features and pretty robust report generation capabilities that help produce this final report efficiently. Newer tools can even create electronic reports in various formats. Their subfunctions include carrying over those bookmarks or tags you made, generating log reports detailing every action taken with the tool, creating timelines of events based on file timestamps and other metadata, and a comprehensive report generator to pull it all together professionally.
That's a really comprehensive overview of what these tools do. So let's zoom in now on the specific types of software and hardware. You mentioned the first tools were command line. What's the landscape like today, especially with Linux becoming so popular in forensics?
That's right. The very first tools, like Norton Disketted back in the MS-DOS days, were command line, primarily for IBM PC file systems like FAT, the big advantage of command line tools. Their efficiency. They need very few system resources. They're designed to run lean, making them incredibly fast and precise. And you'll still find powerful essential command line tools today for the Windows command line, for Mac OS, and yes, significantly for Linux. Linux forensics tools have really taken off, often chosen over traditional Unix systems, partly because of cost, but also because Linux now has very capable GUI features alongside its command line power. For instance, they're smart. It's fantastic, really versatile across many Linux versions, analyzes a wide range of file systems, includes plugin utilities you can add, and has a detailed hex viewer built in. Then you have Helix, often recommended as a great quick start suite. It's known for being easy to use. It can load on a live Windows system.
A live system while it's running.
Yes, though that comes with caveats. Or it can boot as a standalone Linux OS from a cold start, which is generally preferred. But it's crucial to note, as the text points out, that live acquisition capturing data from a running system, especially RAM, hasn't always been accepted as a valid forensic practice by some international courts.
Why is that?
Because the very act of running the acquisition tool can alter the state of active memory. It's a thorny issue. Cold boot acquisition is usually safer, legally.
Gotcha.
And of course there's Kali Linux, formerly Backtrack. It's basically a full Linux distribution, just jam-packed with an incredible array of tools for penetration testing and digital forensics. It usually comes with a user-friendly interface like KDE. The Sleuth Kit is another cornerstone, a suite of command line tools for Linux. And Autopsy is its fantastic graphical interface. It sits on top of Sleuth Kit, making that deep analysis much more accessible via web browser interface. Finally, for really deep memory analysis, there's Force Point Threat Protection. It used to be called Second Look. It was actually developed with Air Force Research Lab funding. It excels at both on-site and remote memory acquisition, specifically looking for malware presence in RAM. Now, shifting to GUI forensic tools, these are designed to simplify things immensely. Great for training beginners, often bundled as comprehensive suites like Encase or FTK. The advantages are pretty clear. Ease of use, you can often multitask within one interface, and you don't necessarily need to learn older OS commands or complex syntaxes.
Sounds good. Any downsides?
Oh, definitely. They can be resource hogs. Need powerful workstations. There's also the possibility, if they're not properly validated or understood, of producing inconsistent results. And there's a risk of creating tool dependencies. You become reliant on that specific tool for certain analyses, which can be a problem if its methods aren't universally accepted or transparent enough for court.
Right. Okay. So beyond the software, forensics clearly leans heavily on the physical gear. What should listeners keep in mind about the hardware, especially workstations and those write blockers you mentioned? It sounds like an area where you really can't cut corners.
You're absolutely right. This is definitely not the place to try and save a few bucks at the expense of integrity. When it comes to hardware, the first thing to just accept is hardware will eventually fail. It's inevitable. So you absolutely need to plan for equipment replacement proactively. When you're budgeting, don't just think initial purchase price. Think about potential failures, ongoing maintenance fees, anticipated replacements down the line.
Makes sense. Be prepared.
Totally. Let's talk forensic workstations. They come in different forms. You've got your stationary lab setups built for heavy lifting, high volume work. Then portable units could be a rugged laptop, could be a self-contained case with integrated hardware for working on-site, and even lightweight, more agile systems for rapid deployment. When you're planning, you have to balance your needs with the system's capacity. A police lab handling all sorts of criminal cases. Very different needs than a corporate lab just focused on internal data breaches, right?
Sure. At different scales, different case types.
Exactly. You can choose to build your own workstation. Advantages. You can customize components, maybe save some money up front. Disadvantages. It can be really hard to find integrated support when something goes wrong. Troubleshooting can be a nightmare, and it can actually get expensive if you're not careful about compatibility and testing. The alternative is buying a vendor-built workstation. Like the FRED units, those are pretty well known. The big plus there is vendor support, which can save you a ton of time and frustration, but the key either way is flexibility. You want the ability to mix and match components, add things later, get the specific capabilities you need for your typical cases. Now, that critical piece, the write blocker. Its function is simple but absolutely vital. It physically prevents any data from being written to a hard disk connected through it.
Preserving the original evidence. No accidental changes.
Precisely. Preserving integrity. There are software write blockers, often running in a special shell mode, but hardware write blockers are generally seen as the gold standard, especially if you're using GUI forensic tools. They act as a physical bridge. Suspect drive connects to the write blocker connects to your forensic workstation. When you use one, you can browse the drive, image it, whatever, but any command from the OS or software that tries to write data, the write blocker intercepts it and just discards it.
Even if the OS thinks the write was successful.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
The OS gets a success signal, but nothing actually gets written to the suspect drive. It guarantees non-alteration. And these devices connect using all the common technologies. FireWire, USB 2.0, USB 3.0 and newer, SATA, PATA for older drives, even SCSI controllers. Covers pretty much anything you'll run into. So for a good forensic workstation, some recommendations based on the text. First, figure out where you'll mostly do acquisitions on-site or just in the lab. That affects portability needs. Then, specifics. You need plenty of fast ports like USB 3.0 and FireWire for data transfer, expansion slots or devices. As much memory and processing power as you can possibly afford for forensic analysis is incredibly demanding.
RAM and CPU are key.
Absolutely key. A solid power supply, ideally with a battery backup, UPS, for stability during imaging. Extra power and data cables for all sorts of drives. Maybe a SCSI controller card if you deal with older enterprise stuff. External FireWire and USB ports for convenience. A good assortment of drive adapter bridges, SATA to USB, IDE to USB, etc. An ergonomic keyboard and mouse because you'll be there for hours. And a good video card driving at least a 17-inch monitor. Or ideally, a high-end card with dual monitors if the budget stretches. Makes analysis much easier. Interestingly, the text mentions if you're on a tight budget, sometimes a high-end gaming PC can be a surprisingly decent starting point for a lab workstation. They often have powerful CPUs and plenty of RAM.
That's a good tip. Okay, if we connect all this back to the bigger picture, why is validating and rigorously testing these tools so critical, especially when the evidence might actually end up in court? It feels like maybe an extra step, but clearly it's super important.
Its importance, honestly, cannot be overstated. It's absolutely crucial. Why? Because it underpins the integrity and, maybe more importantly, the admissibility of your evidence in any legal proceeding. The credibility of your entire findings and, frankly, your reputation as an investigator, it really hinges on the proven reliability of your tools.
So, my tool said this isn't enough.
Not even close. You have to show the tool is reliable. And NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, plays a huge role here. Their CFTT project, Computer Forensics Tool Testing, specifically researches and sets benchmarks for digital forensics tools. How reliable are they? NIST created rigorous criteria for testing these tools based on the ISO 14022 standard. That's a general standard for testing labs, used here because there weren't specific universal standards for these tools initially. So for your lab, it's not enough just to buy a tool. You have to establish and follow clear criteria for testing any new software or hardware you bring in, and meticulously keep records of those tests.
Document everything.
Everything. This includes establishing tool categories, identifying the specific requirements they need to meet for your purposes, developing precise test assertions like the tool should correctly identify all JPG files, identifying test cases to check those assertions, establishing a repeatable test method, and then formally reporting those test results. Another vital NIST project is the NSRL National Software Reference Library. We mentioned it briefly with filtering. They collect known hash values using SHA-1 primarily for their main reference dataset, or RDS, for tons of commercial software operating system files.
The known good stuff and maybe known bad.
Exactly. That RDS is incredibly valuable. It lets you filter out all the standard, irrelevant OS files or applications from your evidence set, letting you focus on the unique data. And yes, it can also help quickly identify known bad files, like common malware variants, based on their hash values. That hash, by the way, isn't just a simple fingerprint, it's cryptographic. Any tiny change to the file completely changes the hash, irrefutable proof of alteration or lack thereof.
Okay, that makes the validation process clearer.
And beyond NIST resources, it's vital to implement robust validation protocols in your standard operating procedures. Standard practice. This means you must verify your findings using at least 2 different tools. Minimum.
2 different tools. Why?
Cross-validation. If 2 different tools, using potentially different algorithms, arrive at the same result, it massively increases confidence in that result. One tool retrieves and examines, another independent tool verifies. Disk editors like Hex Workshop or WinHex are excellent for this verification step. They access the raw data directly, independent of any high-level interpretation. They're incredibly reliable for checking specific findings, even if they lack a fancy interface. So the standard protocol often looks like this. Conduct your main investigation with your primary GUI tool, like EnCase or Autopsy. Then, identify key findings. Verify those specific findings using a trusted disk editor by going straight to the raw data location. And finally, compare the hash values obtained from your primary tool's imaging process with a hash calculated independently, maybe by the disk editor or another utility. They must match.
Okay, that makes sense. Check and double check.
Precisely. There's also a specific protocol for tool upgrades you need to follow. Always test new software releases, OS patches that might affect the tool, and tool upgrades before using them on actual cases. If you find any problems, any anomalies, report them straight away to the vendor. And critically, do not use that version for live casework until the issues are confirmed, fixed, and revalidated. Always use a dedicated test hard disk one with known data patterns on it for all your validation testing. Don't test on case evidence. And regularly check vendor websites and forensic forums for new additions, updates, patches, and any published validation tests for the tools you rely on. Staying current and compliant is key.
Wow. What an incredible deep dive into this whole world of digital forensics tools. We've really covered a lot of ground. We went from the basic principles of evaluating and selecting tools through those critical 5 major tasks: acquisition, validation, extraction, reconstruction, reporting. That was great. We explored the differences, the pros and cons of software and hardware, command line versus GUI, specific Linux tools, workstations. And we absolutely hammered home how critical validation and rigorous testing are, especially when evidence might actually end up in court.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, remember, understanding these tools, it isn't just about, passing a class or memorizing definitions from the textbook. It's really about becoming a skilled, credible investigator, someone capable of upholding the truth in this incredibly complex digital realm, just like Nelson and Stewart lay out in their guide. But this knowledge we talked about today, that's really your foundation for building a robust, defensible forensic practice.
So this raises, I think, an important question for you, our listener, to chew on. Given the just breathtaking pace of technological change, new data storage methods, advanced encryption popping up everywhere, entirely new digital ecosystems emerging constantly, how do you think digital forensics tools will need to adapt, say, in the next 5 to 10 years, just to keep pace? What new challenges, maybe what new opportunities do you foresee for that next generation of forensic analysts coming through programs like those at the Dr. Sam Pack College of Business? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you so much for joining us on Exposing the Truth in the Digital Evidence. We really do love hearing from you, so please like, subscribe, follow, share, and definitely comment below with your thoughts on that question or really any other insights you gained from this deep dive.